Come on in.
Okay, just making sure everything's in order. Got the music going. Hey guys, welcome to Friday Night's Film Nerd number 16. Sorry this stream's a little later than usual. I was kind of debating on whether to do a stream tonight or not. So I'm sure some of you are probably asking, but wait a minute, in the last stream you said that you had plans, you were gonna have plans tonight and you couldn't stream. Well, those plans kind of fell through, so I'm here instead. So anyway, for tonight's stream, we're going to be looking at one of the more interesting directors out there. One that I'm sure some of you may have heard of, but others may not have heard of. We're going to be looking at a man named Alan Smithee. Alan Smithee is not a real person. They are actually a pseudonym. Usually whenever a director was not happy with their film, for one reason or another, usually like some sort of studio interference, they would take on a pseudonym because of how disgusted they were with the changes made. And for the longest time, they would use the pseudonym of Alan Smithee. Um, well, the well this well the pseudonym started in the late '60s, and went on until about the late '90s because for the longest time nobody really knew, like outside of the industry, nobody really knew that Alan Smithee was a pseudonym. People just assumed that it was a real person. um, but then in the late '90s, the name was so commonplace that the Directors Guild basically was like, okay, we need to retire this name. It's not working out anymore. So we're going to take a look at not all of them, because there are a lot of movies that are credited with Alan Smithee. We're just going to take a look at a couple of the more notable ones. So let me bring up the capture screen right here. There we go. And the first movie we're going to talk about is a Western from the late '60s called Death of a Gunfighter, which, as you can see here, was directed by Alan Smithee. And I've got some background info on why this film was disowned. If you'll just bear with me for a second. How are you guys doing tonight, by the way? Hope you guys are having a pretty good first weekend of December. I mean, February. I don't know why I said December. My mind's a little scatterbrained. Okay, so the story behind Death of a Gunfighter, and why I got the Smithee credit, was because the star of the film, Richard Widmark, clashed with the film's original director, Robert Taunton, over the quote-unquote creative differences. And Taunton was replaced by Don Siegel, who is most notable for directing the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Dirty Harry. But then, after it was completed, Siegel didn't want to take credit for the film because he felt that Taunton directed more of the film than he did. But Widmark didn't want Taunton's name on it, so the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, decided to use the name Alan Smithee as a pseudonym. Basically, it was supposed to be like an amalgamation of the word alias, alias Al Smithee. And apparently there were a lot of people who back in the day thought that Alan Smithee was a real person, because this is the first time the pseudonym had ever been used. In fact, Roger Ebert. Let's see. Dunkin' Donuts says, I'm alright, tired, managed to keep under my calorie budget. Alright, good deal, man. Good on you. Let's see. Roger Ebert actually gave Death of a Gunfighter 3.5 out of 4 stars. So it's probably one of the only movies that was really well received that actually got positive reviews. And in his review, he actually says, Director Alan Smithee, a name I'm not familiar with, allows his story to unfold naturally. He never preaches and he never lingers on the obvious. His characters do what they have to do. So back then, they actually thought he was a real guy, but little did they know he wasn't. So that was the first movie to have the Death of a Gunfighter title. But the next notable one we're going to be looking at is the 1985 medical comedy Stitches. I'm not too familiar with this one, other than some of the cast, like Jeffrey Lewis and Eddie Albert. But yeah, it has the Alan Smithee credit attached to it. From what I understand, this is actually a really stupid movie, just kind of I guess, Porky's, but in a hospital instead of a college in the 50s or whatever. But yeah, that's a pretty noteworthy one. Then the next one we've got, this is one I'm actually kind of familiar with. It's Ghost Fever, starring Sherman Hemsley from the Jeffersons. And yep, right there, directed by Alan Smithee. So I'll have to look up the trivia on this one, but I believe what happened with this movie was this was after the Jeffersons ended, and Sherman Hemsley actually put a lot of his own money into the production of this film, but unfortunately it bombed pretty hard, and he lost that those millions of dollars he invested in it. The film's original director was Lee Madden, who apparently also directed some biker exploitation films like Hell's Angels and Angel Unchained. But I believe, let's see. Yeah, okay, so the film was originally shot in 1985, but wasn't released until 87. And I guess Lee Madden had his name decided to take his name off the film because there were tons of reshoots and re-edits. But yeah, Sherman Hemsley funded most of the film's production, but unfortunately, when it bombed, he ended up going bankrupt, which is kind of sad. You know, going from one of the most popular sitcoms of all time to doing something like this. You know, and we just got a donation for $10 from GG Anime 69 saying, dropping some change to someone other than Rogue. Have a great weekend, brother. You too, GG Anime 69. Thank you so much for the donation. Greatly appreciated, and hope you have a good weekend too. Brady W. Hickman says, Ghost Fever. I remember that from Cinema Snob. Yeah, that's kind of where I heard about this movie first too. But yeah, again, it's kind of sad seeing a man from such a popular sitcom, you know, going catch fire, aka backtrack with Dennis Hopper and Jodie Foster. And I believe this movie was actually directed by Dennis Hopper. So let me double check and see what the story is behind this one. Okay, so the story with this one is that Vestron Pictures, who was the production company behind this film, they also produced a little movie called Dirty Dancing in 1987, and they, you know, of course, that film made millions of dollars. But the problem with Vestron was around this time they were just like throwing money at whatever movie they could get their hands on, hoping that they would have another moneymaker like they did with Dirty Dancing, but it just never quite happened. And this is one of those films that didn't do so well for them, catch fire. So what happened with this was they were unhappy with the director, Dennis Hopper's original cut of about 180 minutes. So they actually had the film re-edited without his knowledge. And he was so upset by this that Dennis Hopper actually tried suing the company, but by that point they had gone bankrupt, so there was no one really left to sue. But he insisted that he take on the Alan Smithee credit. So, although apparently there was a director's cut that was released for cable that's about 18 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, which the theatrical cut is an hour 56 minutes, so not sure how long that would be, but it looks like this movie had a pretty sizable cast, like Dennis Hopper, Jodie Foster, Dean Stockwell, Vincent Price, John Turturro, Fred Ward, yeah, some pretty notable names. So it's a shame that this got so beaten down by the studio. Bree W. Hickman says, Dennis Hopper, keep his name on Waterworld, but not this one. Yeah, and he also kept his name on the Super Mario Brothers movie, but that's neither here nor there. So then we go from that one to the movie Solar Crisis. Now, what's interesting about this film is this was supposed to be a major theatrical release, and yep, there's the Alan Smithee credit right there. But this one actually ended up going direct to video, pretty much everywhere in the world. But yeah, this is another movie that I'm pretty sure was supposed to be a pretty big deal when it came out, because this movie had a cast to die for. It had like Tim Matheson, Charlton Heston, Peter Boyle, Jack Palance, Dorian Harewood from Full Metal Jacket. And let's see, who was the director behind this? Well, anyway, so yeah, and this is actually a pretty expensive film from what I understand, but what happened was the film opened theatrically in Japan in 1990, but it didn't do so. It underperformed at the box office. So, to try and secure an American distributor, the producers actually had the film recut and reshot without the director's knowledge. And the director was so unhappy with how it turned out that that he wanted to take on the credit, Alan Smithee, because of how butchered the movie was. And apparently, the director's own son actually did some rewrites, and he also took on a pseudonym, I guess for much the same reason that his old man did, because he was upset with what they did to his dad's movie. Let's see. But yeah, so that's another one that that was pretty much eviscerated by studios. Speaking of being eviscerated by studios, we move on to probably the first movie I thought of when I heard the name Alan Smithee, Hellraiser Bloodline, the fourth film in the Hellraiser franchise, which also has an Alan Smithee credit, but this one was directed by Kevin Yeager. Duncan, I see people in the chat are talking about Waterworld. Funny enough, I've actually never seen Waterworld, at least as of now, but that's one I've really been meaning to get to. But yeah, Hellraiser Bloodline was an Alan Smithee film, as I mentioned before, and it was directed by Kevin Yeager, who's actually a pretty prominent makeup effects artist. Just some of his credits are he worked on movies like Sleepy Hollow, Face Off, Bride of Chucky, A Series of Unfortunate Events. I believe he also did the effects for some of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I'm just checking my phone real quick. Yeah, he did the effects for the Bill and Ted movies, Glory, 926 Evil, the effects for Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 3 and 4. Oh, 2, 3, and 4, actually. Yeah, he was a pretty prominent effects guy. But what happened was this film was made under Dimension Pictures, which, if you know anything about Dimension, they were run by two brothers with a name that starts with the letter W. That would be the Weinsteins. But yeah, there's a whole story about how the film. Yeah, because basically, from what I understand with this movie, Kevin Yeager wanted to make a different kind of movie. He didn't just want to make it a Hellraiser movie. He wanted it to be more introspective, I guess. But what happened was he had Pinhead put in the movie, but Pinhead didn't actually show up until 40 minutes in, and the Weinsteins were like, no, we have to have Pinhead in this movie. He has to be in it. He's on the posters, he's in all the marketing, so they had the film extensively recut. But okay, according to IMDb, the story goes, Kevin Yeager disowned the version with cuts made behind his back due to conflicting artistry ideas. Yeager's version contained much more graphic imagery, plot, and explained everything that happened in the film. The producers disagreed and demanded Pinhead should appear sooner, despite every version of the script up until then having him appear around the 40-minute mark. When Yeager was unable to satisfy, he disowned it and never finished filming some final scenes. Joe Chappelle was brought on to finish the film, filming new scenes from rewrites including the narrative framing device. Some of the original script was thus never shot. So, yeah, thanks to old Harvey Scissorhands Weinstein, the movie got completely slashed apart, and Kevin Yeager disowned the film. But the Weinstein's worst crime, I think, was ruining the sequel to Hoodwinked. I mean, I guess that's true, Goodly. I mean, I can't think of anything worse that they might have done besides that. But then from there, we move on to the last film to carry the Alan Smithee credit. I mean, the last official movie to carry the Alan Smithee credit. And that would be 1997's Burn, Hollywood Burn, an Alan Smithee film, which LA Weekly apparently said was hilarious. And from what I understand, this movie was not very funny. Um, but yeah, it's an Alan Smithee film that was actually made by Alan Smithee. Well, what happened was the director of the film was actually Arthur Hiller, who whose previous credits include movies like Love Story, The Hospital, See No Evil, and The In-Laws. But and what's interesting about this movie too is that it's about a filmmaker whose name is literally Alan Smithee. He makes a big budget studio film called Trio with Sylvester Stallone, Whoopi. The Holocaust was about the man's inhumanity to man, Goldberg, and Jackie Chan. And apparently the movie was so bad that the director decides to take the only existing copy of the film and run off with it. And then I guess the rest of the movie is like kind of a mini doc about them trying to find the director. But what happened with this movie is okay. Yeah, basically what happened with this movie was there was conflict between the director Arthur Hiller and the film's writer and producer Joe Esterhaus, who also wrote movies like Basic Instinct, Jade, and most notably Showgirls. And when the studio preferred Esterhaus's cut of the film over Hiller's cut, that's when Hiller decided to take his name off the film. But after this movie, the name Alan Smithee was basically retired because everybody knew the name Alan Smithee. And also, by this point, the name had kind of been tainted by the film, because of how poorly it did. So the studio after that, the Directors Guild basically were like, okay, we can't use the Alan Smithee name anymore. You gotta use something else. Anyway, so that's kind of a brief look at the Alan Smithee credits. There are like tons of other movies that have used the Alan Smithee name, but we would be here for hours if I went over all of them. But anyway, so now we move on to just in general movies that have been disowned by their directors, like not necessarily having their names taken off the film, but just over the years, like directors who've expressed regret in making some of their movies. And there are quite a few of them out there. And I've found a couple articles to kind of explain why their directors hated them so much. But I figured the first one to talk about would be just give me 1 second. I gotta clear out some stuff. Okay. Let me pull up the capture screen. 1 second. Let's see here. Dunkin' Donuts says, "I'm gonna hit the hay." GG film. Yeah, no worries. Good night, Dunkin' Donuts. Have a good night. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the window here, but I'm not seeing it for some reason, and I don't understand why. Okay, here we go. So the first one we're gonna look at is Dune 1980 was disowned. Yeah, I believe it was. I think it's tricky. I think like the theatrical version still has the David Lynch credit on it, but the TV cut of it, or the extended cut of it, has the Alan Smithee credit. But anyway, so the first film we're gonna look at that was disowned was American History X. That critically acclaimed drama about a neo-Nazi being reformed and becoming a good guy. Well, from what I understand, what happened with this film is that the film's director, Tony Kaye, was clashing with the film's star, Edward Norton, and apparently he didn't even want Edward Norton originally for the part, but then years later has said that he thought Edward Norton did an absolutely phenomenal job and deserved all the acclaim that he got. But what happened was, Norton, because he was such a big star at the time, he actually used some of his star power to basically take the film away from Tony Kaye and have it re-edited so that most of the film incorporate so that there are more scenes with him in it and less scenes with everybody else. Yes, it says in this article, Kaye accused Edward Norton of constantly rewriting the script and blamed New Line Cinema for interfering with his creative vision. In a bizarre twist, Kaye brought a rabbi, a priest, and a monk to his negotiations with the studio. Kaye attempted to have his director credits scrubbed and replaced with the name Humpty Dumpty, which that actually kind of led to the DGA retiring the Alan Smithee name, because they told him he couldn't use the name, so he used that name, and they were like, okay, you're not taking this seriously, so, we're not letting you take a pseudonym, fuck off. But yeah, American History X did get a lot of critical acclaim, and I believe Roger Ebert even said that it's probably the best film that its own director doesn't want to take credit for. But yeah, no, it's kind of funny just how that happens sometimes. Brady W. Swastika on YouTube getting demonetized. Well, thankfully, Brady, my channel's not monetized, so I don't think I have anything to worry about that. But anyway, so next up we've got Rope from Alfred Hitchcock. It says here, Hitchcock's particular directorial style is the stuff of Hollywood legend. The director wanted to experiment with extended scenes to produce one seemingly uninterrupted sequence of events. Technical limitations meant that only 10 minutes of footage could be captured at a time, but careful editing created the appearance of a seamless film. Production design for the set put the walls of the room on rollers so that they could be removed out of the way for a camera to peer into the scene. These techniques are now commonly used to create camera tracking shots that modern audiences take for granted. Despite its technical achievements and high praise, Hitchcock felt that his experiment didn't work on screen. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Rope, but, to defend Alfred Hitchcock, like, he was one of those guys who's like a massive perfectionist. So if it didn't look good to him, then, it wouldn't look good to anybody. So I can understand him being upset about that. And then number 8, we got Annie Hall, which I have seen this movie, but it's been a long time since I've seen it. But let's see. Okay, so it talks about how it got tons of acclaim, a lot of awards. And it says, the film continues to inspire modern romantic comedies, yet according to the director, he is disappointed that the film didn't turn out the way he had imagined. Allen worked with co-writer Marshall Brickman on the script, which began as a stream of consciousness concept. Once filmed and edited, it turned into a unique and erotic look at modern relationships. But then again, considering the shady shit that Woody Allen has gotten into over the last few years, yeah, he can go fuck himself. So let's move on. Speaking of people who can go fuck themselves, we got Joss Whedon, who apparently was not a fan of Avengers Age of Ultron. Let's see. Whedon has spoken openly about the difficulties he faced with the parent company Marvel. Once press coverage had wrapped for the film, the director admitted he never wanted to direct a movie of that scale again. Whedon has gone as far as to claim that the experience of making the film nearly killed him. Well, I mean, I feel like it probably should have killed him. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but admittedly, like, Age of Ultron's okay, but it did kind of lack that special spark that made the first Avengers, the huge movie that it was. Was anyone? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, CC. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of see what Whedon's talking about. I mean, going from directing one of the biggest films in cinematic history to having to follow it up with a sequel. I mean, I can understand being under a lot of pressure, having to make 2 gigantic blockbusters. But at the same time, Joss Whedon is kind of a piece of shit, so I don't really care. What did Whedon do? A lot of things. Mostly, he. Hang on. I think there's actually some articles about that. Let me really quickly see if I can find anything. Okay, yeah. From what I understand, was anyone a fan? I don't know, honestly. But yeah, in terms of what Whedon did, I just kind of took a cursory glance. I guess he was accused of being a misogynist, and I know that when with Justice League, apparently, a lot of the cast said he was difficult to work with, and apparently he talked mad shit about Ray Fisher, the guy who played Cyborg. And apparently it was due to Whedon that most of his scenes had gotten cut out, which is really unfortunate because Ray Fisher honestly was a pretty good Cyborg. So, is he just a bitch or did he diddle kids? As far as I know, he's not a pedo. I think he's just kind of a bitch. But anyway, let me go back to the capture screen. There we go. And let's move on to the next one. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Let's see. The movie has long been criticized for its portrayal of India and its people as brutal cultists who eat monkey brains and sacrifice foreign visitors. Similarly, the film has been slammed for its depiction of China and its people. However, Spielberg dislikes the film because he feels it is literally and figuratively too dark. Large portions of the film occur at night and even underground. While the director had initially conceived of this visual style, he has admitted in interviews that he disliked the result. Further, the film's violence led to the MPAA adding an intermediary between PG and R to classify such films, that being the PG-13 rating. I mean, if he regrets Temple of Doom, I wonder what he would have to say about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I don't know. Temple of Doom is probably the weakest of the original trilogy, but I do still enjoy it. And in terms of its depiction of Indians and the Chinese, it's no more offensive than Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know. And as far as Indians go, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a generalization about it, offending certain groups of people. I can certainly see Spielberg not being a fan of it because it's such a dark movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark was also pretty dark, but it also balanced it out with some more lighthearted fare. But Temple of Doom was just kind of dark from the from the first minute of it. So yeah, I guess I can see that. But anyway, next up we've got Heaven's Gate. Michael Cimino didn't even like movies but directed Heaven's Gate. For those of you who don't know, Michael Cimino was one of those directors who exploded in the late 70s, but then just as quickly fizzled out. Let's see. Cece says, Temple of Doom is just pure stupid camp. If you turn off your brain, it's more funny than bad. Yeah, I guess so. I can see that. But yeah, so anyway, going back to Cimino. He had done a movie or two early on, but he really exploded in the late 70s with The Deer Hunter, which was a massive film. Goodly Draw says, was that the one where they ate monkey brain and shit? Yeah, that's the one. Temple of Doom is the one where they ate chilled monkey brains. But yeah, back to Cimino. He made The Deer Hunter, which was a massive film at the time. And he got tons of acclaim for it. It made millions of dollars, and it even won Best Picture at the Oscars. So for his next film, he basically was allowed to make whatever movie he wanted to make, and the result was Heaven's Gate, which, to put in perspective how much of a failure it was, the studio that made it, United Artists, ended up going bankrupt, but then were bought out by MGM, and instead of making more smaller scale introspective films that were more director driven, they started making high concept blockbusters. But anyway, let's see. The Deer Hunter. Years later, Cimino would direct what many consider to be the greatest disaster in film production history. By his own admission, Cimino was a failed architect who stumbled into the movie industry not knowing how to make a film. The first cut of the film ran for a reported 5 hours and 25 minutes. When it eventually reached theaters, the movie weighed in at a still hefty 3 hours and 39 minutes. Heaven's Gate continues to divide opinions over 40 years later, though modern assessments consider it an underappreciated masterpiece. In fact, among the film's fans is Martin Scorsese. Yeah, there's kind of a long history behind Heaven's Gate, but the long and short of it was, like the article said, Cimino's original cut was over 5 hours long, but then he had trimmed down to about 3.5 hours, and that premiered in theaters. But the premiere went so poorly that they had the film taken out of the theater again and recut to 2.5 hours, and that's the version that's largely considered to be one of the worst films of all time. Now, since then, the full 3.5 hour cut has been restored, and that's the one that's got a lot of reappraisal. And I've seen the movie for myself. I've actually got a review for it on my site, and I mean, it's not a perfect film, and I do think Cimino went way too overboard with it, but I still think it's at least worth a watch. I mean, it's long. It's a very long sit, but I think just for historical purposes, it's worth at least a one-time viewing. But to kind of put in perspective again how much of a failure the movie was, the final budget for it was $44 million, and it only made back about $3.5 million. So, yeah. Brady Hickman, I think, put it best. Heaven's Gate, the Icarus of movies. Yeah, pretty much. It was one of those movies that fell a little too close to the sun for most people. But anyway, so the next one we've got is Fear and Desire from Stanley Kubrick. Let's see. Okay, it says here that before his acclaim, the director helmed a project called Fear and Desire. The film bombed at the box office upon release, but critical reception has been largely positive. The film's failure meant that Kubrick had to take a for-hire job to fund his next project. According to legend, the director was so disappointed with the film that he bought up and destroyed every print he could find. As such, Fear and Desire seemed to have simply vanished, with only a few prints in private collections still being discovered and remastered. Which, I mean, ouch. That's, this one I have seen. Oh, okay, so I guess CC has found one of the few prints of Fear and Desire that are floating out there. But yeah, I can see Kubrick having done something like this, because I think he did something kind of similar with The Shining, where when the film first came out in theaters, it didn't go over very well. So he actually had it pulled, and then he re-edited the film and had it re-released. But again, like Hitchcock, you know, Kubrick was one of those guys who was known for being a perfectionist. Like, if it wasn't exactly the way he wanted it to be, then it was just a terrible movie. So him freaking out so much over it, I could see him having done something like this. I haven't seen it. It's one of actually several Kubrick movies I haven't seen, but that's one I've definitely been meaning to get. I would definitely like to get to seeing sometime, because I'm a huge Kubrick fan. But anyway, the next one we've got is City in Fear. I'm not familiar with this one. Let's see. Inspired by Son of Sam, the real-life serial killer who terrorized New York in the late 70s, City in Fear tried to explore the relationship between sensationalist media and its obsession with engaging with serial killers to sell papers. Mickey Rourke appeared in the film as the menacing point-blank shooter Tony Pate. Pate. The author of the novel, based on this idea, was hired to rewrite the script and bring it closer in line with her book, only to have her work rewritten still. Taylor's goal of making a statement about the dangers of fear-mongering news outlets was lost on the producers who, after filming had wrapped, filmed 4 additional shootings to add to the final cut. So, yeah, that sounds like a bit of a disaster. CC says, Kubrick is as bad as Hitchcock, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're great filmmakers, but they were pretty notorious uh, perfectionist. So yeah, I'm glad someone else agrees with me on that point. But yeah, I can't really speak much for this movie, so let's move on. Oh, okay. This is another one I know was also a victim of the Weinsteins. Yep, and even mentions Harvey Weinstein. So this is on the movie Mimic, which I believe was Guillermo del Toro's first American like English language film. Let's see. Numerous sources have come forward regarding the troubled production, which saw Del Toro fighting to preserve his vision for the film. In contrast, producer Harvey Weinstein fought to make the movie scarier. Sorry, just take a drink. Let's see. On-set altercations finally abated, and Del Toro was allowed to complete filming, but was denied the right to edit a final cut. Many years later, the director was allowed to craft a director's cut, though he still feels that the film is not quite what he had envisioned. Yeah, that's... I mean, you know, Del Toro should be lucky that he actually got to do a director's cut, because there are a lot of filmmakers out there who never even get that chance. Like with The Thing, 2011, there wasn't a director's cut made, but then the studio had them like add in all this terrible CGI and completely redo the film, and the director has not since been able to release his cut of the film. And there have even been like petitions made to try and get that version released, but nothing ever happened, which is unfortunate. So, but I mean, thank God Del Toro was able to spring back from this, you know, and go on to make some really amazing movies like Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water. And then I believe the next one on the list is Death of a Gunfighter, which we already talked about. So I found another article on a similar subject. Oops. Fucking pop-up ads. Hang on. You know what? Let me actually go here. Just gonna turn on ad block. Okay, so this is an older article, but it still covers the same topic. CC says, The Shining still holds the record for the most takes for one scene at, I think, 117. Just for the conference. Yeah, that's right. The scene on the stairs with Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. Yeah, I believe that went on for, like at least 100 takes. Not sure about the 117, like you said, CC, but it went on for pretty long. Oh, whoops. Don't need to see that. But yeah, so we've got this list here from Decider on 10 movies disowned by their own directors. So let's go through here. Okay, we already talked about an Alan Smithee film. Woman Wanted. Okay, so I guess it was made by directed by Kiefer Sutherland, which I had no idea. And apparently he's not too proud of the film. Oh, it's only notable for being the last film to carry the Alan Smithee pseudonym. I cannot talk tonight. Alright, I guess I was wrong about that. Oh, here we go. Revenge of the Fallen. Yeah, probably the worst Transformers movie. Okay, it says here, the second movie in the overstuffed Transformers franchise was naturally a box office hit, but that doesn't mean anyone who had anything to do with it were impressed. Director Michael Bay called the movie crap, but someone managed to pass the buck when it comes to the movie's biggest problem. It was all in the script, which was written hastily after the Writers Guild strike in 2007 to 2008. Yeah. CET says, oof, poor Shelley, she looked exhausted. Yeah, that's the thing about The Shining is, it's kind of, Stanley Kubrick was kind of notorious for, like, really, torturing, like mentally torturing, Shelley Duvall. I think, it was to try and get, like, a performance out of her, but there have been people who've, like, accused him of being, like, abusive towards her, almost. I'm not sure what the... Yeah, exactly, CC Shelley was miserable the whole time. I mean, on the one hand, it did lead to a good performance, but on the other hand, like, you really shouldn't push your actors that hard to get like any kind of a performance. Like even if it turns out to be a really good performance, that's no excuse to like psychologically harm your actors. Like that's just a really shitty thing to do. But anyway, but yeah, there's kind of a funny story about actually about Revenge of the Fallen. So, like the article mentioned, the movie was made during the writer's strike from '07 to '08. But what happened with this movie was basically they went out to the desert and they shot a whole bunch of action sequences that had nothing to do with one another or were not even like connected a little bit. And then once the writer's strike was over, they basically gave the footage to the writers and said, okay, write something with this. Like, basically try to find some way to connect all these action sequences together. So, if you ever wonder why the film is such a disjointed mess, there you go. But, I don't know if Michael Bay can really say the movie was crap when he went on to direct 3 more live-action Transformers movies. I mean, Revenge of the Fallen, I'd say, is arguably the worst one, but other than, like, Bumblebee, none of the live-action Transformers movies were ever really good. So, but anyway. Okay, we already talked about American History X, so we can skip that. Oh, here we go. Batman and Robin. Yeah, the second Batman movie made by Joel Schumacher. Let's see. Yeah, the director himself apologized later for the effort, suggesting that they put too much effort into merchandise tie-ins than on making a tolerable movie. Yeah, that was kind of the thing with the Batman movies. Because after the first 2 Tim Burton movies, Warner Brothers decided to make it more kid-friendly because I guess parents were complaining about how dark and grim those movies were, despite the fact that, you know, they weren't exactly made for kids. They were made for an older audience. But, you know, I guess Warner Brothers is more concerned about profits than they were, you know, making good movies. Which, I mean, is still kind of relevant today. But, hang on. I think there actually is a video of Schumacher. Hang on. I'm going to pull it up. So, there actually is a video. So you see the nipple bat suits. Yeah, exactly. I did actually find in a clip where Joel Schumacher actually does apologize for Batman and Robin, because I knew that was a thing. But anyway, yeah, here's the... let me actually wind this. Oh, that full screen. Here we go. Sorry about the poor quality, but yeah, this is Schumacher apologizing for Batman and Robin.
If there's anybody watching this that, let's say, loved Batman Forever and went into Batman and Robin with great anticipation, if I disappointed them in any way, then I really want to apologize, because it wasn't my intention. My intention was just entertainment.
I mean, you know, good on Schumacher. Like, you know, I'm glad that he's at least willing to admit that when his movie doesn't go over very well. CDT says, lol, they considered the Tim Burton Batman dark. I just remember Danny DeVito giving a motivational speech to actual penguins. Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, he also had the scene of him biting the guy's nose off. So, but yeah, Batman and Robin, I mean, there's really nothing more I can say about it that hasn't already been said. You know, yeah, it's a terrible movie, and it's not good. But, I mean, I'll still defend Joel Schumacher, because he has made some really good movies. Like, I'll always defend him for, like, The Lost Boys and Falling Down, you know, and 8mm. CDT, I honestly thought Batman and Robin was better than Batman Forever. They both suck, though, but kids would enjoy it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they weren't... I mean, Batman and Robin especially was meant as a comedy, and in that sense, like, it was... You know, it did succeed. I mean, it was a comedy, but I just think, like, after the 2 Tim Burton movies, they weren't exactly what audiences were wanting. You know, at least, like, the audience that had seen the 2 Tim Burton movies. But, anyway. Oh, here we go. Alien 3, which, By the way, I will be reviewing this one for Alien Day this year. Anyway, but yeah, so Alien 3, this one had a mother of a production history. I don't think I could even go over that within like a few minutes, but basically all you need to know is there were like dozens of scripts written, almost all of them were thrown out or cobbled together into some giant mess. There were tons and tons of directors who, came and went before they finally settled on a little guy named David Fincher. He had numerous clashes with the studio, and in the end, the movie came out. It was a disaster, and Fincher wanted nothing to do with it. But anyway, let's see. The article says, but he only set himself up for failure. It's hard stepping in as a relative unknown director in such an established franchise, and he quickly lost his artistic control when producers stepped in and took over the production. Fincher, however, has had an acclaimed career since then, and it's easy to see that he merely cut his teeth on the sci-fi thriller. Yeah. Cece says, Arnold delivering one-liners as Mr. Freeze is great. We also wouldn't have a Mr. Freeze cover of Let It Go. Alright, I didn't know that existed. Thank you for letting me know that, CC. I'm going to have to check that out sometime. Hang on, let me turn the music up a little bit. There we go. But yeah, I think there's even an interview with David Fincher where he called the producers of the film like fucking morons or something. But I do remember hearing a story about Alien 3 where JT Cobb, even Schumacher wanted Batman Forever to be darker. There's even a nearly darker 3-hour director's cut that exists. Yeah, I've heard about that cut. I would be curious to see that version. Because again, I don't think Schumacher's necessarily a bad filmmaker. I mean, yeah, he made some terrible movies, but to be fair, what director hasn't made at least one movie that I'm sure they're not proud of? But yeah, Alien 3, again, that one had a... You can honestly write a book about the making of Alien 3 that probably wouldn't even be able to scratch the surface of how troubled of a production it was. So, I don't know. I can't really get into it now, but just take my word for it. So next we've got Dune from 1984 from David Lynch. Let's see. Hired off the success of The Elephant Man and Eraserhead, Dune still remains David Lynch's sole big-budget studio release. After he was denied control over the final cut, Lynch vocally dissociated himself from the film. Some cuts, there are many, even replaced his name with the pseudonymous Alan Smithee instead. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dune, and keep in mind, I've never read the book, so I don't know how the movie compares to the book. But the 84 movie, I think it's okay. I mean, it's definitely ambitious. You can tell that they were really hoping that this would take off and be a big thing. I just don't think the technology was all there. And it also comes off, unintentionally kind of campy. Which I don't know really work for this kind of movie. But, I don't know. I mean, I think the movie's alright. I still haven't seen the 2021 film, but I've been meaning to check it out because, everybody and their mothers talk about how great of a movie it is. Oh, okay. Cece just sent me the Frozen Let It Go performed by Mr. Freeze. Cece, I don't know if I can actually show that on stream just because I'm afraid that'll give me a copyright claim. But anyway, so there's Dune, Hellraiser Bloodline, we already talked about that. Fear and Desire, we already talked about that. Supernova, oh, okay. This is another one that I knew had some production problems. So, from what I remember hearing about it, the film was originally directed by Walter Hill, who also made movies like The Warriors and Streets of Fire. But then he made this film, and apparently he only filmed about 3/4 of it, and then he was fired. And they brought on another director, Jack Shoulder, to... Well, I can't remember if it was Jack Shoulder or Joe Chappelle. It might have been Jack Shoulder to finish the film. But not only did he finish the film, he also shot some whole new scenes for the film, and he was let go. Then they brought in Francis Ford Coppola to finish the film, and you essentially have a film that's made by 3 different directors, none of whom want to take any credit for it. But let's see. Here we got Walter Hill ended up directing the film. What was supposed to be a sort of Hellraiser in space scenario ended up being a clunky film thanks to internal struggles between Hill and MGM, who would not give him the budget he felt it deserved. Hill walked off the film twice, ultimately leaving MGM to have board member Francis Ford Coppola to oversee and edit. And from what I understand, this movie ended up being a massive bomb. I've been meaning to see this one just because of how notorious it is as a bomb, but I just never got around to it. But how long have we been going for? About 55 minutes. I mean, I guess I can go ahead and end the stream here. It's kind of winding down. I just kind of wanted to give a general overview of just how, throughout history there are a lot of movies that have been disowned by their directors. Either usually it's just been because of like struggles with the studio system, or with hang on. Sorry, just gotta check something really quick. Usually it's just been like cases of filmmakers running into problems with the studio, or just having other people take over for their movies, or just people not being happy with the finished results, or just sorry, I'm not able to talk right now. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show that a lot of studios really should be giving more freedom to the directors, because even though the producers are fronting the money, they're still paying these people to come in and do a job based on their experience. A studio shouldn't just hire a director just for the name recognition. They should be hiring them because of their talent and what they bring to the table. And when you take that away from them, you get a much lesser film, and you get tons of Alan Smithies out there. But anyway, I think that's gonna end it for tonight. Let me first pull up my stuff so that I can sell you guys on what I've got. Oh, not bad. Give me just a second. Oh, don't need to see that. Okay, here we go. So, of course, I've got my website, film-nerd.com. Been running this site now for almost 4 years, which is insane to me. I never thought I would get this far. I review a little bit of everything. I review new releases, classic films, and cult films. My most recent review, which actually went up today, was my latest Full Moon Fridays review of The Dungeon Master. And then I've also done the Stanley Kubrick classic Full Metal Jacket, which was actually a Patreon request from Bodacious CNL. So if you would like to request a review of your own, you can go to my Patreon page, sign up for it. Got a couple of reward tiers set up. Each one of them will get you a different role in the Discord server, which there should be a link to that in the description below. You can also get your name listed in the credits of some of my videos. You can get a spot on the patrons page on my website, and some other, and I'm sure, and I'll probably add on some other rewards once I can figure out what exactly I can offer you guys. I mean, of course, you don't have to, donate or give me money or anything like that. Just the fact that I have even any kind of audience here, to chat with and hang out with is cool. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for tonight's stream. I am still working on that Mortal Kombat video. Real quick, Cece says, "Hey man, great job on this. I'd love to see you do movies that got stuck in production hell or limbo." Yeah, that actually could be a pretty good topic for a future stream. Thanks for the suggestion. But yeah, I think that's gonna close it out for tonight's stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Look forward to more videos and more reviews coming out in the near future. And until the next one, I will see you in the future. Take care.